After dinner today, I went shopping downstairs from my house. You can see that no one is in sight in the mall, and there are more stores than customers. I went to a suit shop and the boss told me that there has been no one in the mall recently, and the business is getting worse day by day. Then I asked him why they were still selling at such high prices. The boss said he has to get the most from any customer who comes in, otherwise he couldn't even pay the rent. The rent fee is so high. So I would like to ask, where have all the people gone in our city of Zhengzhou with a population of 13 million?
The ghostly stillness of urban China. In the spring of 2025, as China prepares for the May Day holiday, a chilling stillness has descended upon its major cities, transforming vibrant urban centers into eerie, ghost-like landscapes that evoke scenes from dystopian fiction. Guangzhou, a southern economic powerhouse with an official population of 13 million, stands as a stark emblem of this unsettling transformation. One evening, after a modest dinner, a visit to a nearby shopping mall reveals a haunting tableau. Not a single customer in sight. With rows of brightly lit stores vastly outnumbering any visitors, their displays frozen in a futile bid for attention. A suit shop owner, his face etched with exhaustion and despair, shares the grim reality of his predicament. "No one's come in for days," he says, his voice heavy with resignation. "Business is getting worse every week, and I'm barely holding on." When pressed on why prices remain stubbornly high despite the lack of demand, he explains, "I have to charge as much as I can from anyone who walks in. The rent is astronomical, and I'm drowning in bills." Soaring rental costs, a lingering artifact of China's real estate bubble, have become an insurmountable burden for small businesses, while customers have seemingly vanished into thin air, leaving behind only echoes of a once thriving economy. The question reverberates through Guangzhou's deserted streets, cutting through the humid southern air. Where have its 13 million residents gone? Second Road, once a bustling artery of commerce, nightlife, and cultural exchange, is now a shadow of its former self, with only a handful of individuals waiting for taxis under the dim, flickering glow of streetlights, their silhouettes stark against the neon backdrop. Subway stations, typically packed with commuters navigating the chaos of rush hours, stand silent at 9:55 p.m., their platforms echoing with the absence of footsteps, the hum of escalators, the only sound piercing the stillness. Those who know Guangzhou recall its storied reputation as a dynamic hub, home to sprawling wholesale markets that supplied goods to the world and glittering shopping centers that drew crowds from across China and beyond. Yet in 2025, vendors in these markets report a catastrophic drop in sales, with unsold goods piling up in warehouses, their shelves groaning under the weight of inventory that no one wants. This is a stark contrast to the city's prosperous past, when every transaction fueled economic growth and reinforced Guangzhou's status as a global trading powerhouse. This phenomenon is not confined to Guangzhou, nor is it an isolated anomaly. Across China, cities like Fuzhou, Xi'an, Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen are witnessing a similar exodus of visible populations, creating an eerie sense of abandonment that permeates both urban and rural landscapes. In Fuzhou, a coastal city of over 8 million, central thoroughfares like Zhangting Street are ghostly after 9 p.m., their neon signs flickering over empty sidewalks, casting long, lonely shadows on the pavement. The silence is palpable, broken only by the occasional hum of a passing vehicle or the distant bark of a stray dog. Xi'an, a coastal gem renowned for its ambitious shopping complex in Fujian province, resembles a post-apocalyptic scene straight out of a science fiction novel. The mall, once envisioned as a Venice of the East, with artificial canals weaving through its lower levels, now lies abandoned, its stagnant waters reeking of sewage and unused electric scooters, gathering dust in forgotten corners, their batteries long drained. In Dalian, the city's commercial heart has devolved into a wasteland of vacant lots and farmlands, with no trace of human activity to break the monotonous expanse of barren fields. A real estate development in Dalian, once priced at over $2,000, 0 cents per square meter during the market's feverish peak, now languishes at $1,375.00, with no buyers even at fire sale prices, as if the properties themselves have been forsaken by a population that no longer exists. These haunting images fuel a profound and troubling question that resonates across China and the world. Where are the 1.4 billion people that the Chinese Communist Party claims inhabit the nation? From first-tier metropolises like Shanghai, with its towering skyline, to obscure rural counties nestled in the mountains, an unsettling quiet prevails, challenging the official narrative of a stable, populous nation brimming with vitality. Residents and online commentators are increasingly vocal in their skepticism, taking to platforms like Weibo, Douyin, and overseas forums to share their observations and theories, often at great personal risk, given China's stringent censorship laws. In Guangzhou, many estimate the actual population at 6.8 million, far below the reported 13 million, a figure that feels increasingly detached from the reality on the ground. Drivers note that rush-hour traffic, once a gridlocked nightmare that defined urban life, has thinned significantly, with roads now navigable, even at peak times, a phenomenon unheard of in the city's recent history. A local caterer, who runs a small restaurant in Guangzhou's commercial district, confides to a regular customer, "This city may have lost 2-3 million people just this year. I used to serve hundreds of customers a day, packing the place from morning to night. Now, I'm lucky if I get a dozen, and most days, I'm just sitting here waiting." Similar stories echo from other major cities, where once thriving streets and malls stand empty and businesses shutter in droves, leaving behind only the skeletons of a once vibrant economy that powered China's rise. This apparent depopulation is more than a surface anomaly. It signals deep economic, social, and possibly demographic fractures that threaten the very fabric of Chinese society. China's economy is grappling with a multifaceted crisis, characterized by skyrocketing unemployment rates, a collapsing real estate market that has left millions of families financially stranded, and a profound crisis of consumer confidence that has sapped the vitality from public spaces. Residents seem to be fleeing urban centers in search of better prospects elsewhere, perhaps smaller cities, rural hometowns, or even foreign countries, or retreating from public life entirely, cloistered in their homes or tight-knit communities out of fear, necessity, or despair. But what forces are driving this transformation? Is it solely the result of economic hardship, a natural response to a faltering economy, or do darker, more complex factors lurk beneath the surface, reshaping the nation's demographic landscape and challenging the very notion of China as a populous, thriving superpower? Recent data from Macro Trends indicates that Guangzhou's metropolitan population reached 14.59 million in 2024, reflecting a modest 2.14% increase from 2023. This suggests that outright population decline may not fully explain the emptiness observed in the city's streets, malls, and public transit hubs. Instead, shifts in behavior, such as reduced public activity due to economic fears, the widespread adoption of remote work, or a cultural retreat from consumerism, may be contributing to the eerie silence that defines Guangzhou and other cities. This discrepancy between official figures and lived reality underscores the complexity of Chinese current predicament, setting the stage for a deeper investigation into the economic, demographic, societal, and health forces reshaping the nation in 2025. The emptiness is not just a physical phenomenon, but a symptom of a nation grappling with existential questions about its identity, its future, and the very existence of its people.
Look at what our society is like now. The streets are full of debtors. Nowadays, no one goes to restaurants, no one goes shopping in shopping malls, no one buys houses, no one gets married, no one has children, and no one believes what experts say. It seems that everyone is awakened overnight. Our current situation is as follows. Inside the house are angry minors who want someone not to live. The streets are packed with lifeless youths. The companies are full of middle-aged people who can't afford to live. People don't pursue anything optional, don't buy anything optional. Is this the ultimate outcome of the capital-fueled hype of the past few years? Or have people regained their rational consumption?
Economic collapse and the death of consumerism. The ghostly emptiness of China's cities is inextricably linked to the nation's economic meltdown in 2025, a crisis that has dismantled the foundations of its once robust growth model, leaving urban centers hollowed out and desolate. The economy is faltering under the weight of a perfect storm of challenges. Youth unemployment rates estimated at 27% by independent analysts, a real estate sector in freefall that has left millions of homes unfinished and families financially ruined, and export industries reeling from punitive U.S. tariffs that have disrupted global trade flows and shifted supply chains to countries like Vietnam and India. According to the Merrick's China Forecast 2025, 65% of experts predict China's GDP growth will dip below 5% in 2025, a significant slowdown from the 5.2% recorded in 2023 and a far cry from the double-digit growth rates that defined Chinese economic miracle in the 1990s and 2000s. This economic malaise has obliterated consumer confidence, transforming bustling commercial hubs into desolate wastelands that reflect the nation's broader struggles and signal a profound shift in its economic paradigm. Guangdong Province, encompassing Guangzhou, is at the epicenter of this economic storm, its status as China's manufacturing and trade powerhouse under severe strain. As reported by the Rio Times, Guangdong's GDP grew by a mere 3.4% in the first 3 quarters of 2024, trailing the national average of 4.8% and underscoring the province's vulnerability. The province's real estate sector, a key driver of economic activity for decades, saw investments plummet by 16.8% in the first half of 2024, with major developers like Evergrande mired in debt crises that have sent shockwaves through financial markets, destabilizing banks and eroding trust among investors, businesses, and consumers alike. This collapse has triggered a sharp decline in domestic spending, leaving public spaces, malls, markets, and streets eerily vacant, as if the lifeblood of the economy has been drained away. Shopping malls, once the glittering emblems of China's consumer boom and symbols of its burgeoning middle class, have become mausoleums of a bygone era, their vast halls echoing with the absence of footsteps and the hum of unvisited escalators. In Guangzhou, major malls are virtually empty, with stores outnumbering customers by a wide margin, their displays meticulously arranged but untouched. A shop owner in a Guangzhou mall who has run his clothing boutique for 2 decades laments, "I've never seen anything like this in my career. In the past, a good product and a prime location guaranteed sales no matter the season. Now, even with deep discounts and promotional events, buy one, get one free, you name it, no one shows up. The few customers who do appear are often bargain hunters, scouring for deals that further erode already razor-thin profit margins. As businesses struggle to cover exorbitant rents set during the real estate bubble's feverish peak, when optimism about endless growth drove property values to unsustainable heights. This trend reverberates across China, painting a grim picture of economic decline that spans regions and industries. In Xi'an, the sprawling Wanda Plaza, once a beacon of retail innovation, has become a graveyard of shuttered stores. With global brands like Starbucks, Watsons, and H&M closing their doors, their signage fading under layers of dust and neglect. In Xixi, a city of millions, in Fujian province, tourist attractions, streets, and supermarkets are deserted, stripped of their former vitality, as if the city's pulse has stopped beating. Food markets, typically bustling with activity at midday as workers and families gather for meals, are sparsely populated, their stalls manned by vendors staring into the void, their wares untouched. A vendor at Wuhai Market in Xixi observes, "It's lunchtime, but 2/3 of the food court is empty. A few groups are eating, but there's no one else around. It's like the city has been abandoned, and I don't know why. Even pedestrian streets, such as Twin Road in Chengdu, once thronged with shoppers, families, and street performers, are now desolate, with only a handful of people visible on a Sunday afternoon, their footsteps echoing in the silence, a stark reminder of a community that has retreated from public life. The collapse of consumerism reflects a seismic shift in Chinese behavior, driven by economic insecurity, rising debt levels, and a pervasive loss of faith in the future. During the economic boom of the 1990s and 2000s, rising incomes and government-backed urbanization fueled lavish spending on dining, fashion, luxury goods, and real estate as the middle class expanded in urban centers like Guangzhou and Shanghai became global symbols of prosperity. But in 2025, with unemployment soaring, wages stagnating, and household debt levels estimated at 60% of GDP, saving has become the priority for millions of households. Some describe contemporary Chinese society as a society of debtors, where people shun restaurants, malls, home purchases, and even traditional milestones like marriage and parenthood, opting instead for frugality and survival. A Guangzhou resident, a former office worker now driving for a ride-hailing service, remarks, "No one goes out anymore. People have no money in their pockets, and they don't trust that things will get better. It's like we're all just waiting for the next shoe to drop, hoping we can hang on." The real estate crisis is a central driver of this consumer retrenchment, casting a long and ominous shadow over the economy and society. In Dalian, property prices have crashed from over $2,000, 0 cents per square meter at their peak, to $1,375, 0 cents. Yet demand remains non-existent, with properties sitting unsold even at bargain prices, their windows dark and construction cranes idle. In first-tier cities like Shanghai and Beijing, abandoned real estate projects dot the skyline, their skeletal frames a testament to the hubris of the property boom that promised wealth and stability but delivered instead financial ruin. Developers, many bankrupt or teetering on the edge, have left buyers stranded with unfinished homes, prompting a nationwide mortgage boycott movement that has gained momentum since 2022. Home buyers, refusing to pay loans for properties that may never be completed, have deepened the financial crisis, threatening banks with widespread defaults and further undermining consumer trust in the system, which many now view as rigged against the average citizen. According to CEIBS, retail sales of consumer goods in Guangzhou and Shenzhen grew by just 0.3% and 1% respectively in the first 11 months of 2024, a far cry from the 8% growth seen in 2019. Before the pandemic and economic slowdown took hold, this stagnation reflects a broader deflationary spiral, where falling prices and declining confidence feed off each other, creating a vicious cycle that stifles economic activity and chokes off recovery. The decline in retail has ripple effects across the economy, impacting supply chains, employment, and industrial output. Factories, which have increasingly relied on domestic demand to offset losses in export markets due to trade tensions, are grappling with overflowing inventories that threaten their viability. Industrial zones, once abuzz with round-the-clock production to meet global demand for electronics, textiles, and machinery, have fallen silent, with assembly lines halted and workers laid off in droves, their futures uncertain. A factory worker in Guangdong, who has spent a decade on the assembly line producing consumer electronics, shares a sobering perspective. "We used to work day and night to keep up with orders from America, Europe, and Southeast Asia. Now, the factory runs a few days a week, and we're all bracing for layoffs. I don't know how I'll support my family if this continues, and I'm not the only one." The decline in manufacturing, coupled with the real estate crisis, has reduced household incomes, further curbing consumer spending and perpetuating the cycle of economic stagnation. This dynamic has turned public spaces, malls, markets, and streets into desolate landscapes as people retreat from economic life, either out of necessity, fear, or a deliberate choice to reject a system that no longer serves them. Historical parallels offer valuable context for understanding China's predicament and its implications. The Asian financial crisis of 1971-1998 saw similar urban slowdowns in cities like Bangkok and Jakarta, where economic contraction led to reduced consumer activity, shuttered businesses, and visible declines in urban vitality. However, China's scale, 1.4 billion people, and the world's second-largest economy, magnifies the stakes, with potential ripple effects across global markets from commodity prices to supply chains. The Chinese government has introduced stimulus measures, including tax cuts, infrastructure spending, and monetary easing, but these have failed to restore confidence, as structural issues like high debt levels, estimated at 300% of GDP, and over-reliance on real estate and declining productivity persist. As the Wall Street Journal notes, China's debt-fueled growth model, which relied on massive infrastructure investments and real estate speculation, has reached its limits, leaving the nation vulnerable to a structural downturn with no quick fix in sight. The emptiness of its cities is a visible manifestation of this crisis, a stark warning of deeper troubles brewing beneath the surface that could reshape China's economic and social landscape for decades to come. The population puzzle, unraveling the mystery of absence. At the heart of China's eerie emptiness lies a vexing and contentious question that has captured the imagination of residents, analysts, and global observers alike. Where have the 1.4 billion people gone? The Chinese Communist Party steadfastly maintains that the nation's population remains stable at 1.4 billion, a figure central to its narrative of strength, resilience, and global dominance. Yet, a growing chorus of residents, netizens, and independent analysts challenges this claim, pointing to a flood of social media videos, first-hand accounts, and visual evidence that depict a nation of deserted cities and abandoned villages, suggesting a population far smaller than reported, perhaps as low as 1.2 billion or even less. This discrepancy, if true, would represent one of the most significant demographic shifts in modern history, with profound implications for China's economy, society, and geopolitical standing. A Shanghai netizen, posting anonymously on an overseas forum to evade censorship, laments, "Weekends in Shanghai used to be chaotic, with vendors clogging overpasses, tourists crowding every corner, and lines stretching around the block for bubble tea. Now stores are closing left and right, and even the Oriental Pearl Tower area is a ghost town, devoid of the photo-taking crowds that defined it as a global landmark." This phenomenon is not limited to urban centers, where skyscrapers and neon lights once symbolized China's meteoric rise from agrarian society to industrial superpower. In rural areas, particularly in the less developed southwestern provinces like Guizhou and Yunnan, and the industrial heartland of the three northeastern provinces, Liaoning, Jilin, and Heilongjiang, entire villages have become ghost villages, their homes standing as silent sentinels of a vanished population. A viral video from Xi'an village in Hunan province captures a once thriving community, now reduced to empty homes, their yards choked with weeds and interiors cluttered with abandoned belongings. Clothes, furniture, and personal effects left behind as if their owners vanished overnight in a scene reminiscent of a post-apocalyptic film. The videographer, his voice tinged with disbelief and a hint of unease, remarks, "This village is massive, with a central square and a river bridge named Xi'an Bridge, built to connect a bustling community. But there's no one here, just the sound of birds chirping. It's like the apocalypse has come, and we're the only ones left to witness it." The bridge, a sturdy structure that once facilitated trade and social gatherings, now spans a river that flows through a lifeless landscape, its waters reflecting the desolation above, a poignant symbol of a community lost to time. In another abandoned area in Hunan, the videographer uncovers homes that appear frozen in time, as if their inhabitants stepped out one day and never returned. Wardrobes stuffed with military coats, raincoats, and neatly folded clothes. Televisions bearing the Using brand, a relic of China's consumer electronics boom, and even flashlights left on bedside tables, their batteries long drained, casting no light on the mystery of their owner's absence. Yet no residents remain to claim these possessions, and the silence is deafening. White couplets, traditionally used in funerals to honor the deceased or faded by years of exposure to the elements, hang at some doorways, adding a macabre touch to the scene that sends shivers down the spine of viewers. These images shock and unsettle, fueling speculation about the causes of this depopulation and prompting questions that range from the practical to the conspiratorial. Have villagers migrated en masse to urban centers in search of better opportunities, as they have for decades under China's urbanization policies? Or has a more catastrophic event, disease, natural disaster, economic collapse, or unreported mortality, swept through these communities, leaving them forsaken and forgotten? Some analysts attribute rural depopulation to geographic and economic challenges, such as remote mountainous regions with poor transportation infrastructure that make sustaining communities difficult, particularly in an era of rapid urbanization. These areas, often in provinces like Guizhou, Yunnan, and Sichuan, have long struggled with underdevelopment, prompting younger generations to seek work in cities like Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Shanghai, where opportunities were once abundant. Yet, the presence of deserted villages in the fertile industrialized plains of the northeastern provinces, China's Rust Belt, once a powerhouse of steel, coal, and heavy industry, point to broader, systemic issues that transcend geography and challenge simplistic explanations. A resident of a northeastern village, speaking to a local journalist under the condition of anonymity, explains, "Only 5 old men are left here, all in their 70s and 80s. The young have all gone to cities like Beijing or Shenzhen for jobs, or they've bought homes there, hoping for a better life. No one returns, not even for holidays or to visit family graves." This reflects decades of rural to urban migration, accelerated by economic reforms initiated under Deng Xiaoping in the 1980s that prioritized urban development and industrialization over rural investment, transforming China's economy but leaving rural communities hollowed out. But this explanation raises a critical paradox that lies at the heart of the population puzzle. If millions have flocked to cities, as they have for decades, why are urban centers like Guangzhou, Fuzhou, and Xi'an so empty? Their streets, malls, and public transit hubs devoid of life? The answer may lie in a combination of demographic, economic, and behavioral factors that have converged to create the illusion, or reality, of a vanishing population. Skepticism about official population figures is bolstered by a range of indirect evidence that paints a troubling picture of China's demographic health. China's marriage and birth rates have plummeted to historic lows, with the National Bureau of Statistics reporting a record low fertility rate of 1.1 children per woman in 2024, well below the 2.1 needed to maintain a stable population. Young couples, burdened by economic insecurity, soaring living costs, and a lack of faith in the future, are increasingly forgoing matrimony and parenthood, choosing instead to focus on personal survival or individual pursuits. The demographic structure has shifted dramatically, with a rapidly aging population projected to reach 400 million people over 60 by 2035, according to the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, and a shrinking workforce that threatens economic productivity and social welfare systems. The Economist's Intelligence Unit projects that China's population will fall from 1.41 billion to below 1.39 billion by 2035, driven by declining births and rising deaths among the elderly, a trend exacerbated by the one-child policy, 197201-5, that limited family sizes and skewed the age structure. However, some overseas analysts, citing anecdotal evidence, social media reports, and satellite imagery of deserted areas, estimate the decline may be far steeper, with millions potentially unaccounted for due to emigration, unreported deaths, or deliberate statistical manipulation by the government to project stability. The lack of transparency in China's demographic data fuels these doubts. As official censuses are tightly controlled and independent verification is virtually impossible, a legacy of the state's centralized control over information. Historical precedents, such as the underreporting of deaths during the Great Leap Forward, 1958-1962, when an estimated 1545 million perished in famines obscured by state propaganda, lend credence to suspicions of data manipulation, raising the specter of a hidden demographic crisis. Others point to emigration as a contributing factor, with wealthier Chinese seeking opportunities in countries like Canada, Australia, Singapore, and the United States, driven by economic uncertainty, political tightening, and a desire for greater personal freedoms. A 2024 report by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs noted an increase in Chinese emigration, particularly among the affluent and professional classes. But the scale remains unclear due to restricted data. Stories of run philosophy, term coined to describe the desire to flee China for better prospects abroad, have proliferated on social media, with some estimating that hundreds of thousands have left since 2020, though precise numbers are elusive. Yet, emigration alone cannot account for the scale of emptiness observed across urban and rural landscapes, suggesting that other factors, economic, behavioral, or health, are at play. Urban emptiness may also reflect behavioral changes rather than outright population loss, a hypothesis supported by recent data and societal trends. Data from macro trends shows that Guangzhou's population grew to 14.59 million in 2024, up 2.14% from 2023, suggesting that people may still be present but are avoiding public spaces. The rise of remote work, spurred by the pandemic and sustained by advancements in digital infrastructure, has reduced commuting and public activity, as white-collar workers in cities like Guangzhou and Shanghai increasingly work from home or co-working spaces. The shift to online shopping, accelerated by platforms like JD Conference, Alibaba, and Pinduoduo, has diminished the need for physical retail, with e-commerce now accounting for over 30% of retail sales in China, according to a 2024 report by Statista. Reduced discretionary spending, driven by economic fears and rising debt, further limits foot traffic in malls, restaurants, and markets as people prioritize essentials over leisure or luxury. Yet the sheer scale of the emptiness, entire malls deserted, streets silent, factories idle, and villages abandoned, suggests a deeper, more troubling reality that defies simple explanations. The population puzzle remains unresolved, a mystery that intertwines demographic, economic, societal, and health threads into a complex tapestry of uncertainty. Is China's population truly declining at an unprecedented rate, or are its people simply retreating from public life, invisible but present? The answer may lie in a combination of these factors, each amplifying the others to create the illusion, or reality, of a nation that has lost its people. A phenomenon that challenges China's identity as the world's most populous nation and raises urgent questions about its future. Pandemic fallout, societal upheaval, and the global ripple effects. The ghostly emptiness of China's cities and villages is inseparable from the enduring impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and new health crises that have emerged in 2025, casting a long and ominous shadow over the nation's demographic, social, and economic landscape. Despite official claims of victory over the virus, trumpeted by state media as a testament to China's governance model, residents in cities like Guangzhou, Fuzhou, and Hubei report to overseas media outlets that outbreaks persist, with new waves of infections sweeping through communities like an unyielding tide. These infections, characterized by symptoms mirroring COVID-19, fever, cough, sore throat, fatigue, diarrhea, and vomiting, have reignited fears that the virus, or a related pathogen, has never been fully contained, despite years of stringent measures. Xi'an, a Hubei resident, speaking anonymously to a foreign journalist, shares a chilling account. Viruses are everywhere here. Kids in schools spread it to each other, and a cold can last over 20 days, leaving you drained. I'm sick myself. Sore throat, no strength, and it feels exactly like COVID. I don't know how much longer we can go on like this, and no one trusts the official numbers anymore. Reports of sudden deaths, particularly among younger individuals who appear healthy, are becoming alarmingly frequent, adding to the sense of unease that permeates Chinese society. One resident recounts a harrowing story that has become all too common. A friend was working 2 days ago, joking with colleagues, and then he dropped dead from a heart attack. He was under 50, healthy, and could eat and drink like anyone else. Now his family is left with nothing but questions. Such cases, often attributed to myocardial or cerebral infarction, are now considered normal by some, with many linking them to the long-term effects of COVID-19, such as cardiovascular damage or weakened immune systems, or to unidentified diseases circulating in the population. In Hubei, a province forever marked as the epicenter of the original outbreak in 2020, residents claim that crematoriums are overwhelmed, their smokestacks burning day and night, forcing families to resort to direct burials without cremation, a stark departure from cultural norms that prioritize cremation or elaborate funeral rites as a means of honoring the deceased. These accounts fuel speculation that the pandemic's true toll, and that of subsequent outbreaks, has been vastly underreported, potentially accounting for millions of missing people and contributing to the perception of a dramatic population decline. The Chinese government's opacity regarding the pandemic's impact has deepened public distrust and skepticism about official population figures, creating a climate of suspicion and uncertainty. Official death tolls, which claim minimal casualties from COVID-19, often cited as under 5,000 for the entire pandemic, are widely doubted, with some independent estimates, such as those from The Economists, suggesting that millions may have perished during the initial waves of 2022, particularly during the chaotic lifting of zero-COVID restrictions in late 2022, when hospitals were overwhelmed and crematoriums reported unprecedented demand. The policy, with its draconian lockdowns, mass quarantines, mandatory testing, and severe restrictions on movement, inflicted profound economic and social damage, shattering livelihoods, disrupting supply chains, and upending communities across the country. Migrant workers who form the backbone of urban economies in cities like Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and Shanghai lost jobs en masse during these lockdowns, forcing millions to return to their rural hometowns, only to find them equally desolate, their economies gutted by years of neglect, the pandemic's fallout, and the broader economic slowdown. The question persists, haunting policymakers and citizens alike: where have these workers gone? Some may have emigrated, seeking opportunities in Southeast Asia, North America, or Europe, driven by economic despair and political disillusionment. The concept of run philosophy, Wu Anshu, a term coined to describe the desire to flee China for better prospects abroad, has gained traction on social media, with stories of families selling assets to secure visas or residency in countries like Thailand or Canada. A 2024 report by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs noted an increase in Chinese emigration, particularly among the affluent and professional classes, but the scale remains unclear due to restricted data and government controls on information. Others may be mired in poverty, living in informal settlements, rural backwaters, or urban slums, uncounted in official statistics, effectively erased from the public sphere and contributing to the perception of a vanishing population. The lack of transparent data on internal migration, employment, or mortality makes it difficult to quantify these movements, leaving analysts to piece together a fragmented picture from anecdotes, social media, and indirect indicators. The pandemic's legacy extends far beyond mortality and migration, catalyzing a profound societal transformation that has redefined China's social, cultural, and psychological landscape, in ways that will shape the nation for generations. Among the youth, disillusionment with economic instability, government policies, and the relentless work culture of past decades, often encapsulated in the grueling 996 schedule, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, has given rise to movements like Tang Ping, lying flat, and Bayan, letting go. These philosophies advocate rejecting the societal pressures of overwork, consumerism, and ambition, embracing instead a minimalist, low-effort lifestyle that prioritizes mental health, personal fulfillment, and simplicity over the pursuit of wealth or status. A commentator on a Guangzhou-based social media platform, writing under a pseudonym to avoid censorship, observes, "The streets are filled with lifeless youth, drained of hope by a system that demands everything and gives nothing back. Companies are packed with middle-aged workers struggling to survive, their dreams crushed by debt and layoffs. No one buys anything non-essential anymore. It's like we've all given up on the future." Marriage and birth rates have plummeted to record lows, with the National Bureau of Statistics reporting only 6.8 million marriages in 2024, half the number recorded a decade earlier, and a birth rate that has fallen to 8 million annually, the lowest since the 1950s. Young people burdened by financial insecurity, exorbitant housing costs, with urban apartments often priced at 20-30 times annual incomes, and existential despair, cite these pressures as reasons for opting out of traditional milestones, choosing instead to focus on personal survival or individual pursuits like travel, gaming, or creative hobbies. The rise of single-person households, now estimated to account for over 15% of urban households, according to a 2024 report by China Daily, and a turn toward individualism, mark a significant departure from China's collectivist traditions, which have long emphasized family, community, and societal duty over personal desires. This shift has profound implications for public spaces, as reduced social activity, fewer outings to restaurants, fewer gatherings with friends, and fewer celebrations like weddings or holidays, contributes to the emptiness of streets, malls, and markets, deepening the sense of urban abandonment. This societal upheaval may be a reaction to the excesses of China's capitalist boom in the 1990s and 2000s, which fueled speculative bubbles in real estate, consumer markets, and financial sectors, promising wealth and stability, but delivering instead a generation of mortgage slaves and education debtors, unable to afford homes, healthcare, or secure futures. The real estate bubble, in particular, lured millions into buying overpriced properties with the promise of endless appreciation, only to leave them trapped in debt when the market collapsed, with many homes now worth less than their mortgages. Alternatively, the shift could signal a rational awakening, as some sociologists and cultural critics suggest, with people rejecting conspicuous consumption and embracing frugality as a form of resistance against a system that has failed to deliver on its promises. A Beijing-based sociologist, interviewed by South China Morning Post, notes, "The youth are not lazy or apathetic. They're making a deliberate choice to prioritize mental health, simplicity, and authenticity over a grind that offers no rewards. It's a quiet rebellion against a broken promise, a refusal to play a game that's rigged against them." The technological landscape has also played a role in this transformation, amplifying the retreat from public life and reshaping social interactions. The proliferation of digital platforms, WeChat, Douyin, Bilibili, has created virtual communities where young people connect, share, and find solace, reducing the need for physical gatherings. Online entertainment, from live streaming to gaming, has become a refuge for a generation disillusioned with the real world, with platforms like Tencent and NetEase reporting record user engagement in 2024. The gig economy, enabled by apps like Didi and Meituan, has provided a lifeline for some, but its precarious nature, low wages, no benefits, and intense competition has further eroded economic security, pushing more people toward isolation and minimal. A Guangzhou-based delivery driver, interviewed by The Guardian, reflects, "I work 12 hours a day, but I barely make enough to eat. I don't go out, I don't shop, I don't have friends anymore. My life is my phone and my scooter. That's all I have left." The global context amplifies the significance of China's crisis, as its economic slowdown, demographic challenges, and societal shifts reverberate across the world, reshaping global markets and geopolitical dynamics. As the world's second-largest economy and a linchpin of global supply chains, China's struggles affect commodity prices, manufacturing, and emerging markets from Southeast Asia to Africa and Latin America. The decline in consumer spending and industrial output has already driven down demand for raw materials like iron ore, copper, and oil, impacting exporters like Australia, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia. In 2024, global commodity prices fell by 10–15% due to China's slowdown, according to Bloomberg, with ripple effects felt in mining communities and energy markets worldwide. The shift of manufacturing to countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico, spurred by U.S. tariffs and corporate diversification, has further weakened China's industrial base, reducing its global economic clout and raising questions about its ability to sustain its role as the world's factory. As the Wall Street Journal reports, China's debt-fueled growth model, which relied on massive infrastructure investments, real estate speculation, and export-led industrialization, has reached its limits, leaving the nation vulnerable to a structural downturn with no quick fix. The government's stimulus measures, tax cuts, infrastructure spending, and monetary easing have failed to restore confidence, as high debt levels, estimated at 300% of GDP, declining productivity, and an aging workforce constrain recovery. The emptiness of China's cities and villages is a visible symptom of this malaise, a stark warning of a nation at a crossroads, grappling with the weight of its past decisions and the uncertainty of its future. In conclusion, the enigmatic depopulation of China in 2025 is a multifaceted crisis that weaves together economic collapse, demographic uncertainties, pandemic fallout, societal upheaval, and technological shifts into a complex and troubling narrative. The question, "Where have the people gone?" remains unanswered, but it underscores the existential challenges facing the world's most populous nation as it navigates uncharted territory. Whether China can address these challenges through bold economic reforms, demographic interventions, a reimagining of its social contract, or a reckoning with its health crises, or whether its struggles will reshape the global economic and geopolitical order, depends on the choices made in the months and years ahead. For now, the silent streets, deserted malls, abandoned villages, and empty factories stand as haunting testaments to a nation in flux, a society searching for meaning and stability in a world that feels increasingly out of reach.